this whistleblower is one of many. And now we could even speak about the next whistleblower, which is, I believe her name is Sarah Wynne Williams, Facebook former director of global public policy. She arrived before the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Counterterrorism on Capitol Hill Wednesday, April 9th, 2025 in Washington. And she gave her speech in regards to what she saw going on in Meta. And most of it was obviously corrupt, many of which they were engaged in high stakes AI arms race against China. And during that time at Meta, companies' executives lied about what they were doing with Chinese Communist Party employees, shareholders, Congress, American public. And Wim Williams said in her prepared testimony, this is some of the things she was saying. Also, she stated that dissidents of the Chinese Communist Party that were located in America were also banned from Facebook, which I think is really interesting. And I wanted to hear what you think about this, because oftentimes we hear so much about American dissidents, people that are counter culture and going against the grain, so to speak, right? But we don't hear too much about people in China, people in South Korea that go against the grain, people in Japan. We don't really hear about these people that are speaking up and saying, we don't want this system. We want to live a different and better life. And here we have it. Here's one of the reasons why, because they're being silenced. For lack of a better metaphor, they're mute. Their mics are being muted. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So what do you think about that?
One, I think the first thing that we need to look at is the countries where it's happening, because in a lot of cases, especially when you're talking about with communist China, Meta was working with the government to silence these voices. And I know the first thing people are going to do is say, oh, but what about when Meta silenced all the dissent around, or the dissenting voices around COVID vaccinations? Is it similar? Yes, absolutely. It is similar. Is it the same thing? No. In one case, they're silencing opinions, right? With the dissidents, they're silencing opinions that don't agree with the state's narrative. In the other one, they were silencing misleading information, which I get the disdain for censorship, but you shouldn't be allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater.
Correct.
The posting of clearly non-scientific scientific research, right? There has to be some accountability, or I can go online and just post anything I want. And now I don't know how much time you spend on Meta or other social media platforms, but they've kind of all reverted to the point where they're almost allowing anything.
Well, I think one of the things that was difficult, that I listened to a couple of lawyers on the Hill speak about this, and it's difficult for Zuckerberg, because Zuckerberg at one point muted Donald Trump. And of course, he took offense to that. He's hypersensitive.
Of course he did.
Most men that are that insecure always are. So he comes back, and now, boom, he's getting into office, and Zuckerberg could see that. So he starts kissing the ring. And as he does this, he gives him the money, supports the campaign, I believe supports the campaign and the inauguration. And then after...
In part, I'm sorry to cut you off, but in part, what you're seeing is Trump exercised a vendetta against CBS and 60 Minutes.
Correct.
But in doing so, he also sent a signal to everyone else who relies on the FCC. If you don't bend the knee, I will sick my dogs on you. And that's literally, honestly, that is literally his policy. His only real policy is, if you don't bend the knee, I will do something to retaliate. I know you said, and I don't want to jump ahead in the podcast, you said you wanted to talk about I think it was Harvard, right?
Oh yes, yeah. We should address that.
And he's doing the same thing to academia. He's doing the same thing to the governors of states. If they don't do the thing he wants, is whether it's getting rid of DEI programs or it's trans athletes in sports, regardless of your opinion, he's telling the states or the academic institutions, if you don't do what I say to do, forget about democracy, forget about, freedom of the educational institution or whatever it is. I'm going to pull money that you need to function that has already been granted to you by Congress.
Yep, absolutely. This is scenario where I believe, I may have to dig this up. It was a senator, and she spoke, and she said one of the things that was difficult is that she wanted to speak up.
Freedom of the educational institution or whatever it is. I'm going to pull money that you need to function that has already been granted to you by Congress.
Yep, absolutely. This is scenario where I believe, I may have to dig this up. It was a senator, and she spoke, and she said one of the things that was difficult is that she wanted to speak up,
and she's afraid to. I saw the
interview. Afraid to.
I saw the. And the thing is, and while I can appreciate what she's saying, even the way she chose to say it seemed like she was still afraid.
And so herein lies the question that we can go back to that I spoke about earlier, which is the same thing with Mark Rubio, with J.D. Vance, which is these people that are in office now, a lot of the ones that are in office have been there for decades. I mean, majority of American government is old white people, and you have to understand that this is probably one of their last hurrahs. Like a lot of them, after this, many of them may not get elected again. So there's a high probability that they're looking at it like, what do I have to lose? You know what I mean?
Okay, so I think I've seen that from the opposite side where as these Republicans have aged out and either retired or seen the writing on the wall, they've then done the quote unquote right thing and spoke up. You've got a handful of Republicans who announced that they weren't going to run again in 2024 and then immediately did an about face on like all of Trump's fucking what Trump was talking about in the campaign.
You think so? For me, what I see is there's still such a high level of fear among the majority of them. And I'm not just talking about Republicans, I'm talking about Dems and Republicans. There's such a high level of fear of the backlash, that retaliation, I think, and this is what a question I was going to ask you again is, do you think it is just relegated to just votes? Because I honestly think it's more than just votes.
Do I think that their fear is just not getting voted in? No. I think some of these people, rightfully, some of these people are afraid for their physical well-being.
Right. Okay. And also, not only that, but their families, because it's easy for Trump in his position to sic the FBI or CIA on you.
Yep.
And they don't have to report to the quote unquote, Supreme Court or anything on their matters. They can tap your phone, grab your data from online, and see exactly what you're doing.
Hold on. They do have to answer to Congress. They are held by the decisions of SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, but they have a president who is willing to break all of those norms.
Exactly.
And who the Supreme Court has already told that he won't get in trouble for doing any of this.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, he has free reign to utilize these departments as he sees fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, if you have family members that are looking for a job, you have your
Yeah.
your
Yep.
your anybody in your circle, they could easily get pushed to the side or brought down, because what will happen is essentially, if I come to your job and you don't know and ask about you and say, well, what does this person do, what does that person do, no employee likes heat from the
Nope.
CIA or the FBI, and they will
Yep.
let you go in a heartbeat with regards to that alone.
Before the agent even leaves the building, you will be in your manager's office.
Basically. So that's what I'm saying when I ask the question in regards to what does he have over so many of these people. And I think to a large degree, yeah, he has that leverage and he has the power of this retaliation that he can utilize.
I mentioned the Ezra Klein episode I watched earlier. That was actually one of the things they were talking about, is that he a lot of times in the past, presidents would use political capital to get their way, but political capital is finite, right? Leverage isn't, because leverage you get on an individual, right? Political capital is something you can exercise over a party or to convince members of a party to vote one way or another. Leverage, I've got it all the time. If I had leverage on you for legislation last week, I've got that same leverage on you this week.
Correct.
It's very, very, very wise guy-esque.
Well, one of the things that I notice is, in regards to most of his power, he doesn't have any problems speaking in any way or any faction to letting people know, like, hey, I'm going to come after you.
Yep.
And as long as I think most people in these groups, especially the Democrats, are fearful and refuse to stand in unison, it's going to be hell for them, because you're not going to beat this type of system alone. The Republican Party has been working for decades to make sure that this is coming to fruition, and they are finally where they are, and they're not going to pull any punches. They're going to keep taking as many shots as they can at every aspect of the government to finalize what they want to see, which is a complete oligarchy and control. They want complete dictatorship and autocrats.
Autocrats, yes.
Autocrats, I apologize.
No, an aristocracy. I got that word wrong last time we spoke. I mispronounced it. They want an aristocracy, but the aristocracy comes from the autocracy. So what you said, real quick, what you said about this being a plan that's taken decades, really, you're not wrong about that.
Oh yeah, this has been documented.
Yeah, this has been boiling. My mother loves to talk about the John Birch Society, but it literally has been bubbling under the surface since the 40s, the 30s. It's taken on different names. It's manifested itself in different ways, but there's this desire to create an autocracy through religious ideology. Right. And I don't think the people at the top are necessarily religious ideologues. I think that they just understand that religion is one of the best ways to appeal to people's worst nature.
Tools. Well, let's finish up a little bit more, because that was a very good point too, in regards to this actual meta situation, which is one of the things that did happen in 2021 was the Justice Department signed off for Google and Meta to lay a undersea cable linking the U.S. to Taiwan and the Philippines. Now, this got canceled, by the way. later on down the line. I'm unfamiliar with the reasons why. I have to go and look a little bit more deeper into that. But this got canceled out, and I'm pretty sure it was probably because of security reasons. But this is one of the things that were brought up in the middle of the actual, the actual hearing, because it's a security problem. It's clear that that would lead to some issues later on down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are looking at this, and I have to be frank with you, I didn't know that that was even going to be a thing that they were going to do. And you think about this, and this happened in 2021 in December. And of course, they do a lot of these, quote unquote, these deals around holiday times when people are distracted, people are not quite paying attention, so that they could actually push these things through.
You said this happened around 2021, early 2021? Yeah,
No,
I mean,
late December 17th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's
Again,
that's well into the Biden administration. I mean, it did it. I doubt that something like that came up and was knocked down in less than a year. So is it something that was signed off by the previous administration, and then the new administration saw it and was like, no, we're absolutely not doing this?
I don't know. I have to double check. I have the information here in front of me. I don't want to read it right now.
This isn't to blow smoke up Biden's ass. I don't think he's, our John F. Kennedy or anything, but it does sound like the other side of it does sound like something careless that Trump would do. Again, somebody just got to blow some smoke up his ass. Oh, you'll be the greatest president ever if you let us run a direct line to Taiwan. Okay, I'm the greatest president ever, right? It's like, that's really all you need to do to get him to go along. As long as he sees some kind of benefit in it for him, whether it's popularity or monetary, he'll do it.
True. I completely agree with you. There's no getting around that. And one of the things that's dangerous with him is that he's not in really a space, to me, mentally, with Trump. He's not really in a space that is stable. I think that he's about getting what he can get right now. And as long as he can do that, he doesn't care what happens to the quote unquote U.S. or Americas in any.
Oh yeah, no. What happens to us is inconsequential to him. Remember, because like I said earlier, the people at the top of the pile now, when everything collapses, will still be at the top of that pile, right? Mm-hmm. So as long as he comes out on top, whether it's on top of the entire global economy or just on top of the American economy that's in shambles, he'll still be on top. He'll still, in his mind, have his fiefdom, his little realm to rule over.
Agree. Completely agree.